Good morning, everyone. Welcome to American Scousers. Morning coffee or tea with American Scouser. Morning coffee it is. It's Wednesday, so I'm back to being the world's greatest dads because that's how I roll on Wednesdays. The close seconds, but the world tiredest dad. Gordon is here. I blame Gordon for being a minute late today because we had to get things together because Gordon's crews could not fix my internet late last night. So I had no internet. It was like a primitive. I almost did like a campfire in front of the large screen TV over there. Just got the old days kind of thing. Gordon, what's happening?
Not much. I also suffered. My son was up all night with the thunderstorm, so that's why I'm the world's tiredest dad today. So I had to sit with him while every time thunder went off, he went thunder, and I was like, "Yep, that's thunder. When is this storm gonna go away?" I can go back to bed.
Yeah, well, I hear Angie in the background. She'll probably say about Stitch and Leo over here because Stitch does not do well with thunder, and Leo goes wherever Stitch goes. So Stitch was constantly making runs underneath the thing upstairs last night, so they had to be subdued. Good morning, asshole, says Ryan. This is the best greeting. This is the nicest greeting we get. So, I'm not sharing the others, so just imagine. And John is with us as well on a Wednesday. What's going on?
I finished my coffee a bit early, so the work day was a little tough to start, but hey, glad to be here.
Are you like on a ration, like 1 cup a day or something? Or
Oh, no. You see this mug? It's pretty tall. Like start off the workday was pretty intense. So I finished this tall ass mug and it was just full of black coffee. So
dude, I have this grumpy mug. Like I have the grumpy mug that I use on Mondays, but I have this other grumpy mug that I have a lot of grumpy mugs because it's just like, don't ask me why they keep buying them to me. They might be trying to say something, but I'm not sure. And I don't need it's like 6 cups worth. I don't know who's using that and with what and how does it stay hot? So many questions. So many other questions. But before we get to the questions, let's talk about this. This is going on again for September. We ran this 2 months ago. And finally, we are over 500, by the way, on YouTube. So party celebration fireworks for that. But let's keep it going. If you are not already, go to the YouTube channel, subscribe. And if you're a subscriber, as of end of this month, you'll enter the drawing and win a new jersey. And maybe you can put Henderson on it. I won't, even if I did. And you know what? Okay, before I start really bashing Henderson and we talk about his interview, let the record show that I do not own a jersey with a name on the back of it. But I have considered if I ever did get one, and I have witnesses, people. I called the wifey in here right now. That it was Henderson and Milner, and I got a lot of flack last week thanks to John editing a short where I talk about that duo being like the best captain duo this club probably has ever had. So I was all Mr. Henderson all the time and a biggest supporter, even when people didn't realize what he was doing. So everything I say from this point on, bear that in mind. Because that should tell you how freaking pissed
You're the most hurt. Yeah. That's what
I am the most hurt, Dame. Thank you, Gordon.
I actually didn't want to bring it up. I was kind of towing the line on going like, hey, Tim, you want to talk about the Henderson thing tomorrow? Because if I say it, he's going to be like, no, I don't want to talk about the Henderson thing.
I am still bitter. I mean, okay, so now I am only more bitter. So the interview comes out yesterday. It was yesterday, right? I know when it was. My blood pressure went up so high, I lost track of time. So a lot of stuff being said. I don't even know where to begin, which annoyed me more. But Gordo, which annoyed you the most? Let's go with that.
I didn't go over there for money. That's what annoyed me the most. Trying to say, like he gets himself into the best shape of his life. I mean, the photos that came out during the first training camp, it was like, whoa, Henderson looks like a superhero. He looks like he might be in a Marvel movie pretty soon here. And then he goes, well, I had this conversation with Klopp where I won't reveal the details about it because it was private, but basically I'll tell you exactly what he said, and I wasn't going to get a lot of minutes. And they were going to buy all these players, and instead of being like, yo, I'm in fantastic physical shape, I've never backed down from a challenge before, let's bring these guys in. Let's see if they can take my minutes away from me. He just went, all right, well, I guess I'll go make $700,000 a week. And to claim that he didn't do it for money that's what bothered me the most.
I agree, and I blame Genie for this, because Genie just joined them over there. They're bringing the band back together. So Genie's over there. Genie's like, you know what I did after I went to PSG for money? I made a statement saying I didn't go for money. You should do the same thing. And Henderson followed the stupid advice and did the same exact thing. I didn't believe that shit when Genie was saying it. I'm
Yeah.
not believing you when Henderson is saying it. John, what part of those statements? I mean, there's multiple that annoys me.
Multiple.
Which one annoys you the most?
Well, Sir Round, Sir Round Five, Sir Round. Sorry, I didn't really get his name right, but this is the one that really pissed me off. The whole "no one asked me to stay" thing. Like, come on, Hendo. You've been a footballer your whole life. You know how the business goes. You show a little bit of decline, whether physically, whether in your game technically, and you know what? To be fair to him, it was a bit of both.
Yeah.
He was going to be coming off the bench always, regardless of whether we kept him or not. It just really rubbed me the wrong way. And then he went like, oh, the fact that Klopp was so happy to bring in these guys and that he's so happy about the transfer window just really rubbed me the wrong way, man. Because listen, the reality is, if you want to compete in the highest level of football, which is where Liverpool are trying to be in, you gotta constantly add players. Like look at what we're up against, right? City just replaced their back line with one of the best young center backs in the world, just like that, right? If we don't adapt, we're gonna fall really quickly. Now it was such poor taste for Henderson to make those comments. Now, listen, whatever goodwill he's got left with the Liverpool fans is just slowly ebbing away. It's just really disappointing, man, honestly. So that was the one that really ticked me off, that comment.
Yeah, because that part doesn't make sense either, because he has been in this club for years now, and he's been with Klopp from day one. And he knows with Klopp, if you're not in it 100%, you're basically out. You might as well go. Because, it's not going to, that's not how we roll. If you're either the part of the program and you like your role and you want to work for the larger good, or you don't. And if you don't, you go. Like, there's no halfway, I'm kind of in it and stuff. Because, I think it was pretty much, hey, this is your role. And if you're wishy-washy about it, we're not going to deal with this shit a month and a half in the season. Like, either you say, yes, I accept my role and hop on, or you're like, I don't know, maybe I'll go, then see ya. And on the reverse thing, on a negative side, people who have bought into their role, like Ox is like, I'll sit in the training room then, is that cool? And they're like, yeah, sure. And collect wages were from, we paid wages to people that we probably should have let go on the flip side of that. But Henderson knows how to roll, so I do understand that. And Ryan says he literally went from one of my favorite players to a total twat. And I will probably, my anger will go away after a couple of days probably for this interview. But there's like so many, like every time I see another quote from it, I was like, stop clipping this. He's just saying stupid shit after another. Like the rainbow laces, let's ask you that, Gordo. He's like, well, I'm not ruling it out. but you gotta
forgot
respect
about that.
The local and the Saudi culture and stuff like that as well. What the hell does that mean?
Oh, does he?
Gordo,
can you guys hear me now?
Oh, there we go. Did you catch that? The rainbow.
Okay, I don't know what happened there, but yes. Yeah, so I think that's another funny one, because the way he tried to frame it was like, and I saw some people like defending him, saying like, that's just a fantastic quote, and like he went straight down the middle with it, and he's like, I will think about doing it, but I don't want to offend anybody, because for me the whole thing was, currently I don't want to disrupt anything that will prevent me from making $700,000 a week.
Perfect. Yeah,
I don't want to piss off anybody that signs that paycheck, so I'll do it maybe, but oh well.
And I mean, here's the thing. I understand the part about respecting another culture, all that stuff, right? Like the religion and the culture and all that kind of stuff. But then why were you saying all the other stuff before? Like, so it's cool now because you're like, well, that's just how they roll here, I guess. And then he also says within the same thing about like making a change within. But I will think about the rainbow laces. I mean, how are you going to make a change within if you're there, even questioning what color lace you should be able to wear, and also talk about, respecting, either you respect the local culture and shut the fuck up, or you continue to make your statement. You can't have it both ways.
Yeah.
Well, we'll know which way he'll have, because it goes back to what Gordo is saying in terms of like collecting the money. I really think this makes it, I mean, especially for a guy like me, it makes it 10 times worse. I would have rather had him say, hey, I'm freaking old. You're not going to get this money offered again. I didn't like my role there, so I took this opportunity, generational wealth, feed my kids, blah, blah, blah. I mean, even that sounds less annoying than what he said now. Then do a charity or something with that money and say, no, I'm still for the cause. I didn't leave you guys behind. Instead of saying, sorry. Like, and in the interview, yeah, sorry about that and stuff like that. And then I think we could have all moved on. Maybe we would have like a bitter taste from how he left, but we would have moved on. Like, to come back and say this again, I blame Genie, but John, does this hurt his legacy even worse?
Yeah, it does. Like, listen, it's one of those instances where he just shouldn't have said anything. He should have just come out clean. Like, he should have just gone like what Igalo did when he left United for Saudi Arabia. We're not playing for passion here. We're playing for money. Like, it's very blunt, but it's true. And you know what? That would have helped this case tenfold. Like, seriously, we know what it is about. Like, you don't even have to hide it. We know what it's about. So if Hendo just went was straightforward with his reasoning and everything like that, the fans would have respected him a bit more, because hey, at least he's honest. Like, we may not agree with it, but we always appreciate honesty, right? Now, in personally, in my eyes, yeah, it's damaged his legacy for a bit. Like, ever since he left, even before this comments, his legacy was already damaged for me, because it's just the hypocrisy of it all that I can't take. Like, how can you champion for a cause that helps, these marginalized individuals, and then do a complete 180, right? That just essentially spits on the face of everything that you stood for. And then here you are trying to flip-flop between sides and be politically correct. It's just awful. It's an awful look.
And before, somebody chimes in the comments and stuff and says, oh, like, it's not like UK doesn't have problems or America doesn't have problems. Right. Every freaking society have problems, but you can't just stay on one side and pound on that problem and then just onto the other side and be like, the people you're basically ultimately against, the philosophy that you're against, you can't afterwards say, but I'm going to end up working for them. And people who say, like, I also had this conversation, I think it was a conversation on Facebook about people saying, oh, sometimes, when you're old and you need, you might have like undesirable employers and stuff like that. This is not a dude trying to get a gig at a fast food place and he's like, I'll take whatever I can, man. It's a shit job, but it pays the check. It's not that. I mean, he had a ton of options. If he said, and like you said, Gordo, when I saw him in shape, I really thought, hey, man, he's here to win a spot. He doesn't care who the hell we sign. Right? That's the kind of like, that's how he looked. It's one thing to say, like, okay, you didn't want to compete. You didn't like that role. You assumed, and we would talk. I want to ask you guys afterwards, like, what you guys think his role would be. But, okay, you didn't want that. I mean, I would think, Gordo, he would have had several offers from other Premier clubs or several other others, like from elsewhere in Europe, like Serie A and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest captains in the Premier League. He captained England. The physical shape that he was in, of course, if clubs are sniffing around, he's going to go. And ultimately, if he really felt like he was that old, why didn't he go back to Sunderland? Like, they would love, if it wasn't about the money, if it was about the passion, why not go back to Sunderland? So that's what, like, I agree with John. There's so much hypocrisy in the lines, and he's not even doing a good job of hiding it, because it goes against everything he's done. I mean, if you've read his autobiography, it's literally filled with him facing adversity and overcoming it and not being held up by it. I mean, when he came to Liverpool, he was quite literally hated. Everyone did not like Jordan Henderson. Everyone thought it was a stupid move. He kind of got lumped in with Andy Carroll, which that sucks, but I mean, that's what it is. And he fought through that, and he was one of the most beloved characters of the team that we've had in quite some time, and he lifted everything. He wiped away. I saw somebody quoted the hoodoo of the Premier League and lifted that for us. And if he had just kept his mouth shut, even if he wasn't honest and just kept his mouth shut and never said anything, I think this totally tarnishes him. It's sad.
Yeah, I mean, I heard that. Yeah, Brighton and Brentford were the ones who showed interest, but I mean, that kind of eliminates sometimes you have to go to undesirable employers thing. He had other options. What the difference is, those options were not paying 700,000.
Brighton and Brentford are really good destinations, mind you. Like, imagine his role at a Brighton where he'd probably be starting, or a Brentford, he'd probably be starting every game under a decent manager as well. Like,
and he'd be with his best bud, Adam.
Exactly.
Milner's over there. I mean,
Milner, yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a bad scenario at all. Michael Martin says, I got no issues. I wish I could say the same. I gave up long ago, hoping my sports heroes were anything other than great. At least I was ready to step in the moment. Yeah, I think, that's my fault right there, which I admitted to when he sold out initially. This I find more aggravating because he's doubling up on it and almost denying it. But if he stayed, I honestly think if he stayed week 1, week 2, up to week 4, I think he's our starting defensive midfielder, John. I don't think Endo move happens if Hendo is still here. What do you think?
Well, it could or it could not happen. The thing is, you're right. Like, whether on DM or whether on the 8 position, he starts these, like, either 2 or 3 of these first 4 games. Like, he's talking about game time. Like, we're not in the Champions League, but we're in the Europa League. He'd still be starting those games over Szoboszlai or McAllister. Like, there's still a lot of competitions. There's still a lot of game for him to go around. Now, in terms of the big games, would he be starting? Maybe not. But if his issue is game time, then I don't know. There's still plenty of game time to go around for me. Like, again, it doesn't make sense. There's a lot of inconsistency. Come on, Hendo. Let's just throw all the BS out and let's just say that it was for the money. Like,
no. He says you can believe him or not, but in my life and my career, money has never been a motivator. Period.
Okay.
Ever. Another period. So that's what he says. I mean, I honestly think, especially as much as Klopp likes him, as good of a shape he looked in, with his understanding of the system and his leadership, I really think Gordo, he would be our starting defensive midfielder this season.
No, I totally agree. And he had, as you said, him and Milner were great friends. I mean, almost a mentor-like. And he watched Milner for the last 3 years, totally just loved that coming off the bench role of this is the piece Klopp always goes to shut games down, to give us a little bit more defensive stability. And Milner, you never heard a peep out of him. He's the ultimate professional. And he had that role model and that example and chose to go away, not to use that. And Milner leaves, and he could have taken that Milner role. And if it wasn't about money, why wouldn't he stay there? He's a club legend. And I don't know. It's just the whole thing bothers me. And going back to the statement about how, our players, the players are the heroes that we look up to are nothing more than just players looking for a paycheck. That's totally fine. But Henderson was not that person. He was very, very vocal about several issues that he stood up for, and now he's going against it. So it's one thing to be a good player and to shut your mouth and to do your 9 to 5 and to leave, play the games, the whistle goes, you go back to your family and you shut your mouth. But if you're gonna advocate for something as loudly as Jordan Henderson does, and so many people in the LGBT community look to him and to say, like, look at this guy in a league that there's not many openly gay players, and he's one of the advocates that's always on their side. Like, this is total hypocrisy. This goes against being somebody that a player that you like doesn't live up to. This is like so much more, I feel like.
Yeah, I think, going back to what Michael is saying, that's probably like my era. You would think at this age we'd be, especially as cynical of a bastard as I am, you would think I would see through all these. But I really thought he was kind of like another level when it comes to leadership and stuff like that. I feel the same way about Milner in terms of they were not just players and leaders on the pitch. It's kind of like on and off the pitch, the way they care themselves. It was somebody you could say to your kid, and yeah, don't get me started with this, like, my sports icons to be like, but you could say, this is how you want to carry yourself. Don't be like, Anthony, or don't be like Greenwood or something like that. This is how you want to carry yourself as, as a player, as a person, on and off the pitch, live up to your responsibility, blah, blah, blah. And I really admire that. But I guess when the money comes in, and which is, I am fine with that, man. I wish he had just said, I could not say no to that offer. I don't think, people take it like all he's done good suddenly have collapsed. It's not like he's on the other side now saying like, yes, let's burn them all. But still, I think it just kind of like makes it worse. His insincerity becomes even worse. He could have just owned up to it and said, hey, at that age, I was not going to get this offer. I took the offer, used the good money for good. Jesus Christ. So will he play for England? Maguire's playing for England. Mind you, he is playing. But Phillips, he won't wear the laces, I would think, because he wants to respect new culture and all that kind of stuff. Didn't promise him England berth, but he was going back himself on fight for his position. I really, that's why it's like him claiming, like, what did he want? Like Klopp begging him to stay. He knows that's not how it rolls. We tell you what the plan is. You either go with it or you do not. And I really think he would have gotten a ton of minutes. Gravenberch's transfer might have happened, Gordo, because it was kind of like an opportunity thing. It was somebody we really wanted. It was for the future. But pretty sure Endo move would not happen. Do you think we would do anything different at Endo State in the transfer market?
No, and I agree with you. I don't think the Endo move happens. I think we would have still gotten our man who we like. Basically, we were highlighting him at the beginning of the transfer window in Gravenberch, and we went to go get him because he became available basically at the last minute. And that's I'm with you. I think like Klopp, how many times do we see it? I really think that like McAllister and Szoboszlai get these minutes because we don't have those positions anymore. So we need those guys in those roles where like even everybody that we've ever signed that we've wanted, Klopp takes a little bit to bring him into the team.
Yes.
They've got to learn the system. It's something that Klopp has always done. Robertson, when he first came over, how long did it take him to get into the first team? Now I
think it took a Moreno injury, didn't it?
Yes. Yeah. And so and he was clearly better than, even in the little like glimpses we were seeing of Robertson, was clearly better than Moreno. And I think that Henderson gets that start for at least the first 5 weeks until somebody shows differently. And the reason that our two guys now are getting those minutes is because there isn't anybody else that we have. Klopp clearly doesn't trust Jones and Elliott and to start the games yet. They need to get their feet under them. So I think that Henderson would have had no problem slotting in the first 11. And let's be honest, like I really think that Southgate like doesn't even scout. When you look at some of his team selections, it's like I know that name. Like I'll pick him. Harry Maguire.
I have his card in Ultimate Team.
Yeah, he's always in the newspaper. He's got like one list of players from like 2011, and he's like, all right, this guy's good and this guy's good, and so Henderson would have been called up because he doesn't know anybody else.
It's like, oh shit, he retired. Okay, how about this one then? Yeah,
Is Daniel Sturridge still playing?
I think Southgate is like, oh, it's good for us. It's rested legs or something like that. He's like, it's great that they don't play. They're all rested for the national team. I think, honestly, I don't think Henderson was in there. Henderson was in there last year having a very, very poor season. And unless he did not play for 2 weeks, not having the legs to be able to be the Henderson that makes him good. Let's face it, if Henderson can't do his running and his aggressive play, I don't think, he plays anyway. And when you took that away from him, with the miles he had, and he looked tired. Everybody looked tired, mind you, but he's not a good player anymore because that's his biggest strength. You can't take the biggest strength away and expect him to be a good player. So he was mainly on the national team for his leadership and stuff like that. And I guess maybe like passing brochures for like Jeddah and Riyadh and stuff. Now they're over there as a leader, but that's what he was there for. And that's why he's probably still there. And he would be still there. Even if he was playing 20 minutes a game, I think he would still be there for what else he brings in terms of off the pitch. But I honestly think our starting midfield would be Hendo, Mac, and Szoboszlai right now. And we don't know what's going to happen with Gravenberch. But just knowing the system alone, and knowing, what every position is expected of, he would slot into that CDM. I think it would help him. He wouldn't have to do as much running as the CDM. And so what do you think, John, that Klopp did tell him? Was he like, not cool, you're not going to start? Or
I feel like Klopp was very straightforward with what his role is going to be, especially when we brought in, if I'm not mistaken, Szoboszlai was brought in before he left, right? So we brought in Szoboszlai. That was pretty much our nailed-on starter, like for the foreseeable future. And Michael touched up on it. Like I'm sure Klopp said something along these lines because Klopp, as far as we know, Klopp, he's pretty straightforward with his players. What the question is, why didn't Henderson understand this? I guess is what we have to ask ourselves. Like, because it's just common sense. You're not the player that you once was. There's a system that demands this and that, which you can't give game by game anymore. So you should understand that maybe some minutes are going to be taken away from you. Now, if you play well, that's fine. Like, you're still going to be given a chance. But listen, we're in a transition period. We're in a transition season right now, and we need you to make this transition as seamless as it can be. Now, it was a little bit it was kind of selfish of him to just, come in with all this information and go like, nah, I don't want any of that. I just want to go. I'm just going to think about myself. Like, honestly, that's how it pretty much came off for me. So I'm sure Klopp was very straightforward, was very frank with him. It's just Henderson himself didn't buy into it, unfortunately.
I mean, I understand the ego part of it, Gordo, right? From being one of the main parts and the guy who's doing the shuffle and stuff, you don't want to, it's not easy. Not everybody can do what Milner does, like be able to understand and do what's good, better for the greater good and fill your role and stuff like that. I mean, Milner would openly say he hated playing right back, left back, but he had to do what he had to do, whatever it takes for the team to win and stuff. And part of it, like I said, ego, and I do understand that. But the whole thing is, if you took the Saudi thing out of the equation, if the Saudis suddenly didn't decide to have a league that mattered, I think he still stays, regardless of that ego situation, because he came in from that offseason. I mean, all the boxing and crap he was doing, it didn't look like a guy saying, my final years kind of a deal. It looked like a guy saying, I don't care who signed on this team. I'm in shape. I'm ready to go. So if you take Saudi out of the equation, he stays, right?
100%. And that is why I think it's so obvious that it's only about the money, because of that statement. And like I said, the first statement was, he looked like a guy that was like, all right, Milner's gone. He always won what they called the lactic tests at the beginning of the season. Like, he was always in shape. That was the one thing Milner had going for him, is you could wind him up and put him out in any position, and he's going to give you whatever time you set for him. He's going to perform that job. And he looked like somebody that was ready to accept that. He looked like somebody that had gotten his body in a position to fill that role that Milner left. And it just so quickly been like, oh, this much money's on the table. All right, goodbye. I'm out of here.
Yeah, Alan says in a couple of years, Sander will be back in the game in England. He's going to get a lot of abuse from many quarters. I mean, he'll probably, he can go to Sunderland or something like that. Like, we kind of thought would be his next stop. Fabinho leaving, I still think, though, and we talked about it. John remembers in the morning we talked about this. There was even a short out there about this, where us with Anan, I think that morning, are talking about Saudis are not going to go after Henderson. Nobody's going to know Henderson. They're one. If it wasn't for Stevie being there, Soran says 90% money, 10% Stevie G. Honestly, you could even do that 50-50, because if it's not Stevie G, I don't think any Saudi team is coming for Henderson, Gordon.
No, and that's the key there, is the link between Steven Gerrard and Henderson. I don't think he out of all the players that went there, he just didn't fit with any of those players. Flashy players that fill the role of a goal scorer or a chance creator. And Henderson was like kind of the odd man out. And I totally agree. I think the only reason that he even gets a look is because of Steven Gerrard needed somebody that was going to lead the team somebody that could speak English that would lead the team.
Yes, I mean that practice clip where like Stevie G is like, no, like right here. He's like, God damn it, get somebody over here who understands what I'm saying. And then they were like, oh, how about Henderson? He's cheap. I mean, because here's another thing. Like, it's a team that could not really afford the bigger names. I mean, people are out there getting all these like $40-50 million players. Dude is offering like 200 or something for Mo and stuff. And they're over there like trying to get the band back together from Liverpool's successful midfield from like 6 years ago. They were like, Hendo, Gini, what was the third guy? Like, they're like trying to get that team back together over there. And I think, yeah, it's ultimately, I blame Stevie G, I guess. Let's go with that. I blame Stevie G for him going there. And then I blame Gini for the stupid statements. And you would think, John, he would have looked at, if Gini comes to you and says, you know what you should do, dude? You should do a statement and say, it's not about the money. People eat that shit up. Wouldn't Hendo be like, dude, when you did it, nobody fucking bought it?
Listen, this is why this whole Henderson thing doesn't make sense. It's just conflicting information after conflicting information. Like, none of it makes any sense, man. Like what I was telling you guys at the start of the broadcast, someone take this mic off away from this guy. Like, he's just single-handedly destroying every piece of goodwill he had left with Liverpool fans. Like, again, I have to reiterate, if he just was honest about it, like Odion Igalo did when he left United, and just gone like, oh, the money was just too good to ignore, he would have my respect, because he was just absolutely honest. Like, you know what? Fair enough. You know, and let me just say, this is what makes me appreciate how Firmino handled everything even more. Like, he was going to go, he didn't sign his contract, but he didn't start every game last year. We were pretty poor, but he still conducted himself very well. He gave 100% at the end, and he left like a legend. And we all see him like a legend, you know, in our eyes, because he just left without any fuss, did his job, now is in Saudi Arabia, regardless of how you feel about that league. Right? Fair enough. Like, he didn't say anything. He just did his job. So, like, it just made me appreciate 100% more if, like, these players, Fabinho, Firmino, they didn't make any grand statements. They just did and left. And it didn't matter. It didn't matter how, you know, what league they were going to and all that, compared to, like, Henderson. He was just ruining whatever image.
And, you know, like, Hendo is doing well over there. Hendo would do well. I don't think, you know, I'm not even discussing with people like Hendo as a player anymore, because people never understood it when he was playing here. They're never going to understand it when he's playing in Saudi Arabia. I mean, I've given up on that concept. But I really think he would have done well if he stayed. I mean, like I say, I saw him in the first preseason like clip or whatever that showed up on like Liverpool's like YouTube channel. I basically saw that and I was like, holy shit, he's like ripped. He's gonna be like coming back. Like, midfield is looking good even with 2 additions and stuff like that. But I guess we should move on. Let's lighten up the moods and go to a different topic. Go ahead,
Before we move on, I got a question for you guys. So, do you remember maybe about 10 years ago now the J League started doing this, where they were buying players with immense contracts? Do you think that this is going to be a flash in the pan? Or do you think that the Saudis they've got something that's going to last?
John, let's start with you.
Man, like, I was hoping you would answer this.
Because, I mean, I can answer it if you want, but I'd rather. You know, I mean, I think it's
go ahead.
Until they get what they want, and what they want is probably be in the Champions League or something like that.
Right.
And when the champion, like I say, I was talking about this last week. Like the UFA guys, like, no, we only take teams from Europe, and everybody's looking at like Israel and stuff like awkward. And you know, there's a lot of teams on like Eastern Europe and stuff like that. Well, not Europe, but you know, somehow still in this mix. So they're going to keep going, I think, until what they want. The biggest difference compared to the J League for me is this is not for money. They are not doing this this is more for ego, and they got more than enough money because they got more than enough oil to feed that ego, and they don't need to do this for long. They only need to do this for a couple more years. They're already disrupting the hell out of Europe with what they did in one off season, really, ultimately, because I mean, Ronaldo going there was kind of like Messi coming to Major League Soccer. It was like, oh, boom, look at that and stuff. But this summer, I mean, a couple more of these, and they will keep that window. I think they have all the cards. They're just going to do it till somehow there's a stupid tournament or whatever, you know, FIFA and UEFA work out where they involve them, because this is more like a hobby to them. Yes, I mean, they're buying all these clubs in the Premier League, but they're not like, oh, look at the returns. I don't think they give a damn about the returns. It's more about feeding your ego and stuff like that. I mean, let's face it. If you had unlimited money, what would you do with that money?
I would buy.
You might not be the right guy to ask. Let's keep it PG. But what would you do with that money?
I would buy Liverpool Football Club. I would buy a majority stake, and I'd splash the cash every transfer window so we could compete with City. Like, now that you asked. And listen, to answer Gordo's question on my end, I'm a little I'm not as worried right now, because in terms of the players that they're getting, it's players towards the end of their careers, right? But listen, there was rumors a few weeks ago about them going for Konate. If they get a player like that, players with the profile of Konate, who are just, in a few years, would be world class, that's when I'll start getting worried.
Well, they had that kid from, what's his name, from Celta Vigo, right? That it was rumored with us. He's like 21 or 22 or something like that.
They got him?
Yeah, I can't remember his freaking name now. But I mean, last I saw like a tweet of him like signing, which was a big shocker because a lot of teams in Europe wanted it. But I mean, why don't you go? Honestly, isn't it a bit easier, Gordo, to go there for the money, knowing you can just come back in a couple of years anyway if you really wanted to, make the money while you can?
Definitely. And but I think the downside is always like you're playing against lesser opposition. Like, it really is just like a circus show. Like, my sister compared it recently to that scene in Rat Race. I don't know if you're familiar, but it's just like all the rich guys in a room and they're just like betting on human beings. They're like, look at my human being's going to win this, right? Like my group of humans that I purchased, they're going to beat your human beings that you purchased. But so, I mean, like, maybe you don't get as good as you can be when you're playing in against lesser opposition. Because sometimes I feel that way, when there's a big player that's coming up through the ranks in like Barcelona or Real Madrid. It's just like, who are you playing every week? It's like you're not going to be. I don't feel you're going to get the potential or growth that you're expecting if you're on the Harlem Globetrotters versus whoever they play. The Washington Generals or something like that. Every week.
That's the name. That is official, right? He did sign. Did that change? Did I miss anything? That is the name. That Vijan is right. That's the name I had in mind. Because he's young and he was rumored with us. I mean, among many other people, I guess. But I think here's the thing. Going back to like the competition, like you're saying though, John, the next step is obviously they try to, and apart from Stevie G, they try to go after guys who are more flashy. Everybody's gonna, have their ultimate team card or whatever Saudi Arabia for and stuff like that. But the next step is bringing more players like Koulibaly and Konate and stuff like that, so that now the opposition gets stronger. I feel like it's easier for them to get the next step now and get those players in because the league is going to become more and more legit. I thought this phase was the most difficult one because, like I say, the money is always there. This phase was the most difficult one, is convincing this first batch of players, maybe, because now, you're going to the team that Mane and Ronaldo are on or whatever, and you're going to this team that these guys are on forever. I feel like you're not the first, like you sent these guys to the moon, and now they're reporting that, hey, the water is great, get in. So it's a lot easier, I feel like, for a younger player even to go there. And let's make this clear. Somebody like we were talking about on the private Facebook chat yesterday. I mean, these people are not there. Like they're like, the laws and stuff like that. Okay, let the record show, as somebody who has been there, mind you, decades ago, but I'm sure it's only gotten lighter. You do go by different laws in some sense compared to somebody from Saudi Arabia, first of all. And I'm guaranteeing you that these guys have their little, they call them compounds, like almost like a subdivision. They have their own subdivisions, which, Ronaldo has his own grocery stores. They're probably shopping at Ronaldo's grocery store. Like it's just for players. They get everything from Europe available, so they're not missing anything. Like, I don't know, like guy from Spain comes over there. They're like, what do you want from Spain? We'll bring it over. We'll have an aisle just for you, kind of a deal. So they live like a normal, regular, comfortable like lifestyle. It's not like they're like, but apart from the ridiculous heat and humidity, they don't have to deal with the local laws and stuff like that.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously they're treated as like way more than first class citizens over there. Let's not like mince words and everything. It's just like, to your point about the first batch of players, you know, they're managing to bring in these players towards the end of their careers, but these players still have, you know, the name to them, like the pedigree attached to them. Like, let's say a Sadio Mane or a Cristiano Ronaldo, who's pretty much won everything there is to win, you know, in the European level. But, you know, at the end of the day, unfortunately, it'll come down to these players for me. Like, for example, if I was a young player, instead of going to the Saudi League, I'd try and make my name first at an established club in Europe first. Then maybe we could talk about, like, for example, I'd want to start and spend my prime years, let's say age from 21 to 28, making my name at Liverpool Football Club or a Manchester United or a PSG. Once I've won the lot, that's when I'd maybe consider going to maybe Saudi Arabia or something. Obviously, in an ideal world, that's how it'll be. But to your point, Tim, they're bringing these players to legitimize the league even further. So maybe it might convince these guys to just skip that step and go like, hey, these guys have pretty good players anyway. Let me just make my name there. And, you know, Henderson is a perfect example. He's playing in this league that isn't yet in the tier of the Premier League. It is not even in the tier of the Championship, I would say. But he's still being called up for the World Cup. So that pretty much opens your eyes, like going like, oh, this guy is playing here. He's not as good as he was, but he's still being called up for his national team. Maybe I could take the $700K a week and just stay here and play here for the rest of my life. Like, it's not even going to give them like a tenth of the pressure that they're going to be getting when they play in Europe. So this is the unfortunate truth that we're going to be facing over the next few years as the Saudi League continues to legitimize itself and get these players in. Again, it's entirely up to these players if they want to go. Like, here's hoping personally that they just stay in Europe and stuff and try and establish themselves. But again,
dude, we literally just talked about Henderson for 30 minutes, and you're still hoping a young kid is going to try to earn minutes.
Well, hoping is the key word, right? Hoping, like, but hey, man, again, hoping, but money talks, right? Money talks.
I think that's basically what's going to happen. Like, I mean, as a young kid, that money could even be more tempting to get that and bank in, because you don't know when you're going to tear this and tear that and never be the player that you are and stuff like that. I mean, in an ideal world, you would hope, like I would have the same hope, but this is the cynical bastard does kick in, because I know if I'm like 21, 22 and somebody is coming in and saying, hey, here's a boatload of money and you'll be passing to Mane, I'm probably gone. And then, you know, I'm like, if I don't like it, if it's too hot, I can just come back. I mean, that's, you know, but I'll come back a lot richer, and then I can go wherever and take a lower contract and stuff like that. I think they will go for Pep or Mourinho now. Mourinho, I can see over there, you know, like a sleeveless tank top coaching on the sideline, yelling. I can see that, but I think, I know they got Mancini over there, and they will probably get more. The question there is going to be, I mean, Pep is a natural fit, I guess, but are they going to be able to do their own thing? I think that's like the biggest thing. So
let me ask you guys something before we move on. A comment here from Ryan kind of intrigued me here. And yes, Ryan, I disagree massively that we should be selling Virgil right now. But in 2 years, I probably wouldn't be saying the same thing. So let me ask you guys. How about
this summer?
This summer, still think it's a bit early. But you know what? If they come in with like 200 mil, yes. Anything lower than that, no. But yeah, let me ask you guys this question. Look at selling Virgil, getting a couple of center backs with that money. What do you guys think?
Sold.
Sold.
Next summer, sold.
If we could get a couple of center backs, but how many times have we seen where we make a big?
No, we didn't get one.
we make a big sale, and then we don't do. We're like, yes, we got all this money, and then it's like, wait, we didn't buy anybody with it. So like, I'd be worried that we'd get rid of him and be like, well, you know, we've got a couple of great 17-year-olds that can fill his role right now.
I mean, look at Kwanzaa. No, I honestly think in a good off season next year, you sell Mo that way. And I know Ryan was Chris was asking about it earlier. I'm hoping nothing happens within the next 24 hours or whatever we have left over here. For Verge, no. I mean, I think you get 70, 80 easy for Verge, maybe 100.
Ryan, I said 200 million because he's my favorite player. So just
okay. I was like, okay. that's John's asking price, but it's like Amazon, like suggest the retail price now available for 70.
John, you could work for Chelsea with those numbers.
Listen, if anyone's gonna bite
for 120,
listen, if anyone's gonna bite for 200 million for Virgil van Dijk.
Yeah, I was
like Chelsea would be that team. So listen.
But honestly, as a great offseason, you would sell Verge, you would sell Mo, and with all that money, you get a couple of center backs, you get a right winger, and that's a pretty good rebuild for next season. I think, if it happens.
Virgil and Mo going at the same window, man. Like, listen, I don't know if I could handle it.
We just had Henderson, Fabinho, and Bobby go in the same summer, and I would argue that we're a lot better team for it.
I understand, but listen, these two are like the linchpins, man. They're like the spine of club side. I don't know. Like Bobby sure, Fabinho sure, but our truly world-class players at our best, I would say, was Verge, Mo, and probably Alisson.
So notice the past tense there. And
I have nothing to say. I have nothing to say about that. I'd argue with Mo.
Henderson. I will depress you with Van Dijk every freaking day. Okay, let's talk about more funny stuff. United.
Moving on. You just say United. It's just funny already.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like, that's the punchline is United. Ten Hag says it's not offside, wrong angle. And then there's a penalty on Holland from Wish.com and a foul on Evans, which I honestly thought Evans was wrestling the dude down, but that's just me. I think that's what you get for having when you have a Maguire and Evans lineup as a center back pairing in the back. I think the game should have stopped right there, and they should have just by default given it to Arsenal, and you'd be like, your guys are out, kind of a thing. And then
it's like like when you play on the very lowest level of FIFA, and it's like, are you sure you want to do that? You have to say yes twice before they allow you to bring both of those players on in a tied game away from home.
I mean, it's really rich, John, that Ten Hag is bitching about refereeing after Onana assaulted two guys like a gunpoint in a box, and they got 3 points out of it.
Listen, it couldn't have happened to a better team. Let me just say that. I was laughing my ass off at the way United lost that game. Like, listen, if it was Liverpool, I would be depressed for like 2 weeks, considering they probably listen, all right, fair time, like objective time. United could have easily won that game. Like, you got Arsenal celebrating as if they won the league. Like, honestly, they don't look as all right, this is hot take time. Arsenal don't look as good as I thought they would, like, to start this year. We definitely could take these guys. Let me just say that. We could take these guys. Now, the way that they celebrated at the end of the game, where they barely scraped past the United side, missing their best center back in Martinez, who got injured mid-game. And they were without Varane as well, if I'm not mistaken. Right? Yes. So, listen, they barely scraped past the United team who, listen, that offside call, like, all right, before I go on a tangent here, what do you guys think about that offside call? Like, by the letter of the law, again, it looks offside, but I don't know, man. It looked onside to me.
I'll go with you, Gordon. I mean, for me, the offside thing should be letter of the law. If you're off, you're off. Unless we're going to do the Dutch thing and draw a thicker line. If you're off, you're off. If we open up a gray area and say, well, that's not that off, you're just screwing up the whole thing. We already have enough problems. I don't want another problem with that. I mean, that's how I look at the offside thing. Gordo, what do you think?
Well, there is already a gray area because it's clear that everyone interprets it. Every single referee interprets it differently.
Right.
And it depends on the game. I mean, if that was a different ref, we might be saying that United won 2-1 in the 88th minute there, and they go away with 3 points at the Emirates. And that's the reality of the game right now. And I think because it's so finite, it's like, that doesn't make it better. I don't feel like. I think it needed. I forget. Was it Arsene Wenger that said like, what if it like the whole body has to be past the defender to be offside? Because there's no arguing that guy's offsides now. But now it's like minimal and like where is the camera placed and where did the offside take place and exactly where the kick is. Because I'll be honest with you, was it? I think it might have been the Tottenham game. The Chelsea game, their disallowed goal. When they went back to look at where the offside took place and where the kick happened, I had a feeling that they went too far. the contact with the ball had already been made on that free kick, and I really thought that it was onside, and that Chelsea should have been up 2-1 at that point. So I don't think anyone knows what's going on now.
But the thing, Gordo, with that, if they allowed that goal, they probably should have allowed Mo's goal as well.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
But in the same game, like in the world that we're living in right now, you know that one of them goes in, the other one doesn't, and then they release 5 seconds of audio clip that's doctored or whatever. Or,
I really want like the thicker line to kind of like cover most of that problem. I mean, Michael says the law did not intend to be down to the millimeter, tip of the foot, armpit. And I understand that, but then who's going to decide? I don't want these guys deciding anything else at this point. Like, I'd rather have AI just like rule the game over and to get it done and over with.
The greatest league in the world, ladies and gentlemen. Right
yeah, exactly. I mean,
much to John's point though, is like, here's the thing that my dad and I always talk about is like, without VAR, this is what happens in a season. You win some, you lose some in terms of referee decisions. And at the end of the year, after the 38 games, it will have evened out. It's just like the soccer gods eventually give you one back, and they probably should not have scored with that collision in the first one against Wolves, which would have been lost of points. And then they get this one taken away from them that probably was very, very close to being like, you could have argued either point. If it's not offsides, you could have had an argument for it. If it's called offsides, we have an argument for it. And you lose that decision. So it balances out, and I feel like this is them getting one back.
I feel like Bickler made a good point. I think he mentioned it a few weeks ago, Tim. Why not just
scrap this? Because we should clip that.
the one where he said we should just scrap VAR altogether.
Don't get me started on this.
Listen, like with or without VAR, they're pretty much making the same mistakes anyway. So what 100%. Is the point? Like, what is the point? Like, it just makes them look even worse. Like with VAR, they still make the same mistake if they called it in real time. So it just
but that's like saying, oh, okay, the referees are making mistakes, so let's just get rid of them anyway. Let the players decide.
Listen, man, I'm just going by a technicality here, and technically, they're still wrong, even with all this technology. So listen,
that's because I don't think it's being used right. They're making it hard on themselves. I'm kind of against getting rid of it because we can't use it right. Let's use the technology. I mean, I don't think we're going backwards where we're eliminating technology. If anything, we're putting too much technology in the sports. You could argue, but if it's there, freaking use it, but use it right. I don't even understand how we misuse it so much, but I don't think it's going back. I don't think it should go back. Trust me. I mean, these guys would love for it to go back. Initially, I hated it because I'm an old fart. And it didn't, change it wasn't a fun change. It still is not. A goal happens and there is like that, wait. Until you see the first replay, you're like, fuck yeah. And then, you can celebrate and pass out the snacks. But I still say there are some things that are fixed and you're like, man, thank God VAR is there. Otherwise we were screwed.
I guess.
And that's why I want to kind of like keep it there. If the ref and VAR operator are speaking at the same time, neither can hear each other. Yeah, that's like the radios like we used to have at work.
And the greatest league in the world, ladies and gentlemen. The officials can't even communicate with each other well. Like, this is the greatest league in the world.
Like, hey, what channel are you on?
Yeah. A good segue here. Did you guys hear that argument for Szoboszlai's goal last Sunday, where apparently Mo was blocking Martinez's sideline? I was like, are you guys freaking serious right now? Like, when he strikes the ball, apparently Mo is in front of Martinez enough where he can't see where the ball is going.
Was he off though?
No, it's not. It's not about being offside. It's about blocking the view of the goalie. I was like, is that a rule now? Like,
what the hell? I thought, they were arguing because he was offside and blocking the view or something.
It's not. Yeah, it's blocking the view. It's like Mo was literally in the sideline of Martinez. And I was like, is this even a rule? Like, correct me if I'm wrong, guys. Is this a rule? And to all our viewers listening, is this like a legit rule? Because I'm confused.
Yeah, never heard of it. I mean, Ike's goal for City against Fulham is a goal, and it's not blocking the view. I don't understand that rule anymore. Like, I saw that goal, and I saw the VAR, and that goal stick. And I was like,
oh, there we go.
I guess I don't know this game anymore.
Right.
I mean, like he was way off, the guy in front of the goal, and he almost does. I mean, to me, it's no different than opening his legs out in the last second to let the ball through, which is deceiving, obviously distracting. So how that goal, once that goal stood, I was literally like, I guess I don't understand this game anymore. Like, come on, just shut the lights off, let's go away, because I gotta find, like, maybe I'll start following lacrosse or something. I'm like, how is that not in his vision and affecting the play? I just don't understand it. But getting rid of VAR does not get rid of. It's almost like, oh, you guys are too stupid. Let's get rid of this. That's why I want the VAR to stay. Let's just use it right. Before we run over here, real quick. Actually, I want to actually, guys, there were like so many United topics to talk about. It's a wealth of topics. We can have a daily show, like your morning United cup of coffee or something.
It's going to be really funny. Let me tell you that. It's going to be a really funny show.
Anthony, there's no H in there. Anthony, Gordo, what do you make of that story?
I think it's United are like, are you kidding me? We just got rid of one of these guys. Come on. They probably had a club meeting. Like, no one touch anyone, okay? Nobody. If you have girlfriends and wives, ship them away. Don't touch anyone. Don't talk to anyone afterwards. This is ridiculous. So I'm sure they're spinning their heads. But the fact that it was like down to the Brazilian national team. I think it was one of these where United's like, we cannot do this again. So let's just hope that it goes away. And we'll let somebody else deal with it. And then the fact that the Brazilian national team comes out and says, well, we're not picking him because of this allegation. And you're like, wait a minute. Why did we not hear about this from United?
I think that's what makes it, like sometimes you hear these things and it's just an allegation. So you don't want to jump on it right away and stuff. But then when it comes back again in a bigger scale, John, then you're like, whoa, maybe there is like some more truth and actual evidence to this.
Listen, it's just really unfortunate that that this is happening again. Like, I feel for Anthony's partner if the allegations are true. But let me just say that it's just absolutely disheartening. If you're a United fan right now, there's literally players with more allegations than you guys have wins. Which is pretty sad. Like, listen, I'm not trying to be funny here. It's unfortunate. Yeah, it's unfortunate. So listen, I just hope that whoever is in charge of this investigation does what's necessary, does their due diligence to find the evidence and everything. And whatever happens to Anthony, I just hope that he's judged properly with all the evidence taken in account. And listen, it serves as a lesson for all these young men coming into the professional sport, that just because you're some big shot doesn't mean that you gotta I'm not going to elaborate further, So, yeah, that's what I hope happens here. It's just unfortunate.
I'm glad Sir Z brought this up, because speaking of United fans, what are Getafe fans thinking, Gordo, right now? I already saw the protest. I watched the video of him being introduced. I mean, I don't know La Liga that well or Getafe as a club. I mean, I just know of them. I don't know much about them. So I don't know if that's unveiling of Greenwood, where he's juggling the ball like I don't know why they do this at this day and age. I would hope to God for 40 million the guy can juggle, right? So we shouldn't need this is why we spent 40. Look at him juggle over here. So I don't know why they still do this to these players apart from get some of the money back. But so I don't know how much of that showing was like, oh my God, look at all the Getafe fans, because the stadium was pretty empty. It was only like one side. I mean, what were they thinking? Because when we were talking about it, I assume no European club would want any part of that PR.
Well, I mean, look at the club. I mean, they're not a particularly big club, so maybe they took an opportunity to take someone that's highly rated as a young individual and put their all the other stuff aside for a second and focused on maybe adding a piece to their team that will help them on the field. But I'm sure it splits the fan base, because it splits everybody in the Premier League too. There's some people that are like, she dropped the charges, like, leave the guy alone, he deserves to come back. And so I think it's probably similar with that fan base is there's some people that are pretty upset about it. And I know that, like, let's just say Liverpool were in that situation and we scooped them up, I think that there would be a split fan base. I would, for one, would be very upset with the club that we put our morals behind us and went through, because it's a little bit different than a lot of things. Because somebody had brought up, like, well, I think like Gylfi Sigurdsson, like now he's playing for another club, and he was dropped by Everton for, we never really found out, but it had something to do with child sex cases, and all those were dropped, and it was very hush hush, and they just didn't pay him or whatever. And somebody had brought up the fact that, it's because Greenwood's black and Gylfi Sigurdsson is white, and I'm not 100%. I don't know why one was kept hush and the other one was brought to light, but there was a difference in that Greenwood. There's plenty of evidence, where everyone, it was leaked to the media. Everyone heard the recording, unfortunately. And so that it would just, I think it probably definitely splits the fan base. And I'm sure some people are pretty upset about it.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know why we never got more information. I know this fact that because it was like a child thing, obviously, like the victim is more protected due to the age and stuff like that announced. So I don't know if those cases don't get opened up like another one where everybody's, over 18 and stuff like that. I don't know. I'm just speculating on the. I'm not a lawyer. I just play one in the mornings over here. Storied says Getafe fans in uproar because Greenwood is black, not because of the allegations, and that says a lot about it right there. And then Alan was talking about Getafe is a Spanish club, and but I would think, John, that would almost make it like we don't want any more freaking headache. We already have a headache in this whole category, or they're hoping that there's so much chaos with the other stuff. Nobody will even notice we brought Greenwood over here.
Well, everyone noticed, didn't it? Like, we're talking about it right now. We're not even United fans. Like, what if they were trying to pull a fast one? Like, they're literally doing it in broad daylight. They're just going to a guy and saying, "Hey, give me your money," like in front of a giant crowd. Like, come on, man. Like, it's never gonna go unnoticed, especially with the controversy attached to him. So I don't know what they're like. Listen, from a logical perspective, I just think they're looking at it. Oh, he's a good player. We need him. Whatever baggage comes with him, screw that. That's what I think. That's what I think their mindset is going into getting Greenwood. Do I agree with it? Of course not. So
yeah, I find that shocking. I didn't expect it, but yet another thing I'm wrong on over here. I'm on a hot streak.
Is this true, by the way? What Sir Z is saying?
I'm sure. I'm knowing the league. Sadly, I'm sure it is. I don't know if it's more. It might be tongue in cheek, but I'm sure they are. I mean, is it though? Like, I know, like, yeah. I mean, the wages they're not paying much for this, but I wouldn't pay a penny for this headache. Is my thing. I understand they're getting. I mean, I don't even know what they're getting at this point. But they're getting at least a guy who needs to prove himself and hoping that he can do it on the pitch, probably is what I'm assuming. But I mean, I know his name got rumored for a couple of teams in Turkey, and I already saw the Turkish papers, and I would have guessed or hoped Spain would be ahead of the curve when it comes to like women's rights and stuff like that compared to Turkey, because there was already an uproar about like, why the hell are there no other players left that they're bringing this guy kind of a thing. And that totally like it's almost like they did the same thing United did. They throw that out there. What if hypothetically we said we brought him over here and everybody was like, "What are you, a moron?" They're like, "No, I was just kidding," and then they just kept going. But for them to get off it, they just not even try that and be like, "Hey, guess what? Guess what we got?" And then just bring the guy over and have him juggle for people over there is just crazy to me. We didn't get to a bunch of topics, but this is what happens when we go off the rails over here.
Listen, my title says "Go Away International Break" because I felt like we won't have much to talk about. But here we are, 1 hour and 2 minutes in, just going.
Yeah, and probably could have gone another hour. I mean, like I say, United by itself is a show that we would enjoy, like a comedy skits that last an hour every day. But we'll be back Friday morning. No shows this Thursday. The boys are on an international break as well. So they will be, I'll be back Friday morning. Tonight though, we do have the panel show. I think we're taking next week as a vacation instead. We will have the panel show, hoping to have Shay on there, Alan, as well as Jay to represent Spurs, Villa, and Arsenal. So that's going to be an interesting conversation. Let's see if I'm assuming Alan liked the lines being drawn the way they were, but let's see how that goes. Alan is disappointed. Hey, they need some time off too, Alan. Or more like the audience needs some time off. I don't know which one it is. Either way, there's no Thursday show this week, but we'll be back tonight with the live show for the panel, and then Friday morning we'll find some more funny United headlines. I'm sure we don't have to find them. I'm sure they'll make themselves up as we
There's
go.
Actually a new one right now, but we're out of time. So
what is it? Now you intrigued me. What is it?
Yeah, Kazi posted it on the Discord. Like, Gabriella Cavalin's lawyers have accused Manchester United of covering up Anthony's crime. Essentially,
Ooh, God,
that's
Friday
spicy.
can come soon enough.
That's
okay,
spicy.
we'll talk about it then. You guys have a great Wednesday. Take care, guys. See ya.